They said, "Come home for Thanksgiving, Dad." But after landing, I faced a heartbreaking twist. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The airplane shook like a wild beast, my heart racing as I clutched the armrest. I could feel the weight of fear pressing down, heavy and suffocating. Just a few hours before, the sun had been shining through my apartment window, promising warmth and family. But now, looming dark clouds surrounded us, swirling ominously as if the universe was pulling me into its troubled depths. As I landed, a cold wave of anticipation washed over me. The familiar airport smelled of burnt coffee and cheap cologne. Families hugged and laughed nearby, their joy a sharp thorn in my chest. I could almost hear my daughter's laughter, the sweet sound of home. But something felt off. The air buzzed with tension. The excitement that spread through me was replaced by confusion that I spotted a woman near the exit, her shoulders trembling. She was whispering into her phone, eyes wide and frantic. No, it can't be true. Her voice sliced through the crowd. My heart sank. What had happened? I wanted to run to her, to help. I could feel my breath quicken, a tightness in my throat that I pushed through the throng of travelers, each one a blur. The shiny tiles under my feet slipped with my uncertainty. My phone buzzed violently in my pocket, breaking my thoughts. It was a message from my son. "Dad, find Mom." Panic churned in my stomach. I pictured Mom's warm smile, her pumpkin pie waiting on the table. But why was he telling me to find her? As I stepped outside, the frigid air hit me like a slap. The sky above was thick and gray, like an old bruise. In the distance, a police car's flashing lights cast eerie shadows across the pavement. A chill ran down my spine. I tugged my jacket closer around me, but it couldn't shield me from the growing sense of dread. Then I saw her. A small crowd had gathered around the squad car, murmurs echoing. My feet felt like lead, but I pushed forward, heart pounding in my ears. Panic clawed at my throat. My mom, was she in trouble? I fought hard to breathe, each heartbeat magnifying my fears. Just then, a voice sliced through the murmur. "It's not safe, folks. Back up." A police officer stood, his face stern, but behind him, I could see a figure being led away. My breath hitched painfully. I couldn't make out who it was. Anxiety twisted in my gut.my hands trembled, thoughts racing. Who was that? Was it Mom? My heart sank further, pulling me under. I worked through the crowd, desperate for answers, panic clawing at my insides. A knot formed in my throat as I thought the unimaginable. What if she needed me? What if it was too late? Just as I reached the front, I locked eyes with her. A shocking twist sent ice through my veins. It wasn't my mom at all. It was my brother. He looked rough, like fighting a storm of his own. But why? What had happened? And where was she, Nadia? I whispered, half in hope, half in fear. My heart was about to explode. The world stood still as I awaited a response. My world had turned upside down, and now I was left standing there, questions swirling like the dead leaves around my feet. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The look on Nadia's face was what shattered me. Disheveled hair, sunken eyes, as if he had spent the night wrestling with ghosts. A familiar guilt waved over me, crashing into memories I thought I had buried, the nights I wasn't there, the calls I missed. But what lay behind those eyes wasn't disappointment. It was desperation. "Dad," he rasped, choking on the word. My heart clenched painfully. "Mom, they won't let us see her." In that moment, time ceased to exist. The sounds of the airport faded into a muffled hum, the chaos around us becoming distant and surreal. "What do you mean, they won't let us see her?" My voice trembled. I needed clarity. My mind was racing, darting back to the joyful memories of Thanksgivings past, the laughter echoing through our family home. How had it come to this? They said it's an incident. She's in the hospital. His eyes darted away, avoiding mine. Tu didn't know how to tell you. I barely found out myself. The weight of his words felt like a 100-pound anchor, dragging me under. What kind of incident? I tried to grasp at hope, while panic threatened to take control. Is she okay? Please let her be okay. Nadia clenched his teeth, anger or resignation flickering across his features. I don't know. I tried calling you, but you should have been here sooner. His voice cracked, and I took a step back, shocked by the accusation wrapped in his pain. The burden of unfulfilled promises crashed down like iron bars that I can't change what happened, Nadia. I never wanted my voice was too loud, too sharp. I felt eyes on us, judging, reflecting my own helplessness. But he wasn't finished. You never wanted to be part of this family anyway. You left us. His words hurled like arrows, striking deep. Now look. He gestured with a sweep of his arm toward the gathering crowd around the police car that I had to work. You know it was never about leaving you behind. My chest felt tight with sorrow and frustration. I wanted to explain, to help him understand. I also wanted to scream, to curl into a ball, and let the darkness swallow me whole. That a soft hand touched my elbow, grounding me in that moment. A kind stranger, perhaps sensing our turmoil, stepped closer. I overheard you, she said gently, her voice calm. I think you both need to get to the hospital now. I can give you a ride if you need. Her unexpected kindness ignited a flicker of warmth within the cold chasm of my heart. I nodded, speechless. The latest wave of fear got drowned in a well of gratitude. My eyes softened as I looked at Nadia, who stood rigid with a mixture of disbelief and yearning to connect, but also to push away. As we climbed into the stranger's car, the silent tension hung thick in the air. I shot glances at my brother, who stared out the window. The city rushed by outside, lights blurring into streaks. At that moment, I felt the distance between us like an expansive canyon, but I also felt a new resolve forming within me. I couldn't let the hurt of the past define our future. Look, Nadia, I began hesitantly. I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. But we need to stick together now. Mom needs us. His gaze flickered briefly to me, and then back out the window. She always needed you, Dad. We both did. His voice broke, authority giving way to raw vulnerability, the chasm between us both clinging tighter and beginning to fill with unresolved hurt that I started, but no words came. The hurt was a fog, thick and swirling. I wanted to reach over, to grab his shoulder and let him know it would be all right, that we would face this together. But how could I when I didn't even have certainty myself? Upon reaching the hospital, the stark smell of antiseptics invaded our senses, swarming around us with an eerie familiarity. Nadia hesitated at the entrance, glancing down the fluorescent-lit corridor. What if she doesn't wake up? What if stop it? Don't think like that. The words burst from me, hot and urgent. But I could see my reflection in his eyes, the same doubt gripping my heart. As we approached the information desk, a nurse greeted us with a gentle smile, the warmth of her compassion momentarily easing the frozen fear clawing at my insides. Can I help you? She asked softly. We're looking for our mom, Nadia, Mrs. O'Brien. I fumbled. The words felt heavy on my tongue, every syllable scraping against my throat as if naming her was giving power to the situation. She nodded, quickly typing into her computer. I'm sorry, but I need to inform you that only immediate family is allowed in at the moment. I felt Nadia's tension coil tighter beside me. Walls were closing in. What does that even mean? Is she dead? He spat, anger and fear mingling in his voice. The nurse blinked, taken aback. No, she's alive. We're just monitoring her for now. Please, try to stay calm. A moment of agonizing silence followed, and I could feel the stakes rising. To see her and hold her hand, to tell her everything would be fine, it felt like an overwhelming longing. Before I could swallow the lump rising in my throat, a shrill alarm echoed down the hall, piercing the stillness. Instinctively, we both turned to the source. The chaos erupted in the corridor, alarms ringing wildly. We need assistance in room 402. Voices shouted frantically. I felt my heart stop, and the world began spinning again. Dad, Nadia whispered, his eyes wide with fear. What's happening? Whatever hope had begun to spark was extinguishing quickly, leaving only a growing shadow. Just then, a doctor rushed past, and for the briefest of moments, he locked eyes with us, a knowing glance riddled with urgency and a hint of dread. So you need to wait here. It's not safe. The doctor called, but the words fell away as Nadia whispered, what if it's Mom? The cliffhanger loomed above us like a thunderstorm threatening to break. We stood torn between hope and despair, trapped in the chaos unfolding around us, the uncertainty gnawing incessantly at the edges of our hearts. The flickering fluorescent lights cast shadows on the tiled floor of the hospital corridor, each unsteady pulse of illumination mimicking the frantic beating of my heart. The doctor's urgent tone echoed in my mind as I gripped the counter of the reception desk, nails digging into the cold laminate. Behind me, Nadia's breath hitched, the fear in his eyes deepening as alarms danced in the backdrop, now an oppressive symphony underscoring the chaos of our lives. "Please," I implored the nurse, my voice trembling on the edge of breaking. "Tell me what's happening to her." She hesitated, glancing around as if the very walls might betray us, then leaned closer, her voice a mere whisper. "They're doing everything they can. I can't disclose details, but we're losing her heartbeat." Those words struck like a blade, and I staggered backward, the realization crashing over me like icy water. Losing her heartbeat? I repeated numbly, the question barely escaping my lips. My mind was racing, scrambling through a whirlwind of memories, years of missed calls and family occasions that had turned into mere photographs hanging on a wall. My mother's laughter, the way her eyes sparkled at the dinner table, the warmth of her embrace that felt more and more like a distant dream. How could I be standing here, powerless? Nadia clenched his fists, his youthful face twisted in anguish. "What does that mean?" His voice trembled, yet it carried the weight of someone who had carried too many burdens for far too long. "We can't just lose her." I turned to him, wishing I could pull every ounce of pain from his heart and bear it myself. "I don't know, buddy, but she's strong. You know she is." Words were falling from my mouth like leaves from a tree in autumn, beautiful yet empty. The nurse stepped back with a small, pained smile. "They'll let the doctor know you're waiting. Please, try to remain calm. Family needs to stick together right now," she said, and there was kindness in her gaze, a glimmer of hope amidst the despair. But nothing could drown out the echo of the doctor's words. "We're losing her." It hung in the air, thicker than the antiseptic scent that surrounded us. I turned back to look at Nadia, who had stepped away from the desk, his shoulders trembling under the weight of unexpressed grief. Suddenly, he was more a child than a young man, just a scared boy crushed beneath the enormity of his reality. "Dad," he called out suddenly, his voice a piercing wail. I rushed to his side, and he pointed down the hallway, his eyes wide. "What if that's Mom?" A small group of medical staff surged toward a room, their faces set in stone, terror mixing in the air like the oppressive taste of dread. A cold shiver ran down my spine as I glimpsed a fleeting form wrapped in sheets on a gurney, an overwhelming sense of helplessness gnawing at my insides. Before I could respond, an elderly man in a wrinkled suit approached us, appearing lost yet determined. "Excuse me," he said, his voice deceptively shaky. "Are you looking for Mrs. O'Brien?" "I'm a family friend." "What do you mean, family friend?" Nadia spat, instinctively backing away, anger flaring up like a flame against the stranger's intrusion. His eyes softened, and he held up his hands, palm out in an effort to calm the escalating storm. "Listen, I've known your mother for a long time. I just want to help." I stepped forward, dismissing Nadia's defensiveness, desperate for any connection to my mother at this moment. "What do you know? Is she?" The man gulped, his expression pained. "She had a heart attack. They're trying to stabilize her. But we have to face the fact that her heart has always been fragile. A heartbeat, that was all she had left." I could see the flicker of understanding and fear wash over Nadia as he processed the implications. The anger fading from his face was replaced with the cold grip of dread. "What can we do?" I felt the need to cling to some semblance of control, wanting desperately to draw my son close, to protect him from the reality that loomed ahead. But I didn't have the strength. A pause lingered, and in that moment, I caught a glimpse of what family meant not just by blood but through the shared experience of love, of fear, and, ultimately, of loss. Underscoring the heaviness, I felt the man's hand resting on my shoulder, his voice steady and kind. "Let's go wait in the family room. They'll have answers soon. We just need to hold on to hope." Reluctantly, I nodded, leading Nadia away from the chaos, following the man who seemed to carry the weight of reassurance with him. But as we moved, another loud crash cut through the air, followed by a loud shout, a voice I recognized from my past, a voice I had tried to escape. "Mom, The wild, desperate scream echoed down the hallway. I could hardly believe it. It couldn't be her. The heart-stopping scream reverberated into my bones, awakening shadows I thought had faded long ago. "Dad, what was that?" Nadia whispered, and I could feel his heart pounding alongside mine. Our fears melding into a single question that threatened to consume us both. But before I could answer, the stranger looked over his shoulder, his eyes wide in shock. I felt the world tilt beneath my feet. One more heartbeat. One more endless moment waiting for answers that may never come, and a voice from the past threatening to drag me further into a turmoil I had tried so hard to escape. The walls began to close in again, each pulse of uncertainty echoing into the silence, an emotional cliffhanger that shadowed every step we took. The waiting room felt like a purgatory, an in-between realm suspended in time. I sat hunched in a vinyl chair, every breath heavy with anxiety. The fluorescent lights buzzed incessantly, the sound mixing with muted conversations and the occasional rustle of a newspaper. My knees bounced involuntarily, a telltale sign of my growing restlessness. Every tick of the clock felt painful, as if each second was teasing us with the weight of uncertainty. Nadia remained unusually quiet beside me, his youthful face pale and drawn, reminiscent of a lost child in a sea of adults trying to keep their composure. He stared blankly at the floral-patterned carpet, tracing the outlines of the petals with a finger as if drawing a map to escape this grim reality. I wanted to reassure him, to weave comforting words that would shield him from the storm brewing in our hearts, but my own thoughts were tangled in a chaotic mess. The family friend, Mr. Thompson, sat across from us, his hands resting on his knees. His expression held a mixture of concern and guilt, as though he were burdened by memories of my mother that collided with the heaviness of the present moment. I could see the shadows of regret behind his eyes, and it struck me that he might have been privy to moments I had missed, fragments of her life beyond the walls of our home. Suddenly, the silence shattered. A nurse entered the waiting area, her eyes scanning the room, locking onto our small trio. My heart lurched. A wild hope flickered as she approached. "Mr. O'Brien?" Her voice was steady but soft, carrying the weight of dread that hung in the air. "Yes." "How is she?" I leaped to my feet, urgency lacing my voice as I reached for Nadia, who instinctively gripped my hand tighter, his small fingers trembling against my palm. The nurse exchanged a glance with Mr. Thompson, a look that said more than words ever could. "I'm sorry, but please, just tell us what's happened," I urged, barely able to contain the quiver in my voice. Nadia's eyes glistened with tears, and while I wanted to shield him from this, I felt the clutch of reality closing in. "Your mother is stable for now. But," she hesitated, "she's in critical condition. We've managed to stabilize her heart, but the situation remains serious. I'm afraid she'll need surgery to bypass the damage." Relief crashed into despair. We had gained a foothold, yet the summit still loomed high and daunting. "Can we see her?" Nadia's voice was small, but there was a glimmer of determination that pierced through his youthful fear. The nurse nodded gently. "Just for a moment. Please remember she might be disoriented." Nadia looked at me, and in that fleeting exchange of vulnerability, I saw his fear transform into something resolute, a flicker of hope alongside the tempest of our emotions. "We have to go, Dad," he whispered. "Yeah, we do." I squeezed his hand, not wanting to let him go as we made our way down the sterile corridor. Each step felt monumental, and the scent of antiseptic filled my lungs with a haunting familiarity. When we reached the room, the sight before us stole the breath from my lungs. My mother lay frail and small, an array of tubes snaking from her body like desperate veins trying to connect her to life. I had seen her so full of laughter, a vibrant spirit who could fill any room. Now she appeared like a shadow of herself, diminished and broken. Nadia stepped closer, his eyes wide as he took in the sight of the only woman who had been constant in our lives. "Mom," he ventured, the whisper lilting with the weight of tender fear. Her eyelids fluttered as she stirred, and recognition washed over her features like a soft sunrise. "Nadia," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper, cracking like glass. "You came. I wasn't sure if you would, that I am here, Mom." His voice quavered, and his brave facade threatened to shatter. "I'm right here." As I stood beside him, my heart ached witnessing this moment of connection woven through pain. The room pulsed with longing, the ghost of past family gatherings lingering in the air. We were bound by a love that seemed to stretch beyond suffering. The urgency to mend the fractures of our relationship surged through me, a desperate wish to reclaim all the moments lost. But just as I reached out to tuck a loose strand of hair behind her ear, the door swung open again with a swift urgency. A sharp gasp escaped my lips as a nurse stepped into the room, her face a mask of urgency. "Mr. O'Brien," she called, and just as the weight of the world crashed down, a voice behind her called my name, strong and familiar. "Dad, you won't believe who just showed up." I turned, disbelief flooding my senses. And there she stood, the woman I had tried to outrun all these years, the very person whose presence had echoed through the hallways of my nightmares. My heart dropped, caught in a riptide of emotions I hadn't prepared for. "Come home for Thanksgiving, Dad," she had said, and I had resisted, choosing distance instead. But now here she was, the ghost of a past I thought I had buried. "Mom," Nadia yelled, a mix of confusion and excitement dancing in his eyes as he stood frozen, torn between the two mothers in his world. And just like that, the storm of our realities erupted, the fragile threads of hope trembling in the face of betrayal. My family, the irreplaceable mosaic of love, grief, and unspoken words, stood at the precipice of devastation, and I had no idea how we would survive this newfound chaos, as secrets clung to the air like a thick fog, refusing to settle. The fluorescent lights flickered erratically, mirroring the tumultuous ocean stirring within my heart. I stood frozen, rooted to the spot, a thunderous silence wrapping around me like a constricting vice. Nadia's eyes darted between my mother in the hospital bed and the woman who had re-entered my life like a ghost haunting my memories. "Dad, what's going on?" he asked, the confusion tugging at his voice as if he were reaching out to grasp a thread of clarity in a dense fog. I cleared my throat, the air thick with emotions that fought for dominance. This is your mother, Nadia," I managed to say, forcing the words through lips that felt numb. "Your real mother." A frown creased his brow, the reality of my life crashing around us. "But she's not. I don't understand." The woman who had walked back into my life stood at a distance, her pale face tinged with regret and uncertainty. The years hadn't dulled her beauty, and yet, every aspect of her filled me with an overwhelming sense of betrayal. How could she just show up now, when I was vulnerable and frayed at the edges? I felt cornered, caught in a painful crossroad of past grievances and present desperation. "That I can explain," she said, her voice trembling with a fragility that mirrored my mother's condition. I could see the burden she carried in her eyes, shimmering with unshed tears. "I didn't intend for you to find out like this." "Like what?" I spat, the hurt and anger bursting forth unchecked. "Running away was your choice, not mine. You left when we needed you the most." Nadia flinched at my tone, and my harsh words sent jagged shards through me. Here I was, struggling to create a safe space for him amidst the chaos, and instead, I was inviting conflict into a moment that was already fraught with tension. My heart ached as I glanced at my mother, who lay frail and still, as if she were the one holding us together, an anchor to a ship caught in a storm. Nadia's gaze shifted back to the bed, his small hand gripping the cold metal rail nervously. "Mom, are you going to be okay?" he asked softly, the innocence in his voice cutting through the heaviness like a beacon of hope in the darkness. My mother's gaze remained fixed on him, flooded with emotion. "Sweetheart, they'll do everything I can," she replied with a strength I barely recognized. "But what matters now is that you know I love you, and am fighting. I've fought for you even when you weren't with me." The tenderness behind her words felt like a balm to my fractured heart, reminding me of the many nights I had spent wondering whether I was enough, wondering if she cared through all the silence, all the years that had slipped away between us. "Mom," Nadia began but faltered, the weight of so many unspoken questions holding him back. Before the moment could spiral further, I felt a surge of boldness. "You're here now, what do you want?" I directed my anger, frustration, and fear towards her, eager for answers that had escaped me for so long. "Why now? Why after all these years?" "I wanted to tell you that I've changed," she said at last, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chin. "I finally broke free of my demons, and I want to be part of your lives again, but am terrified that I've lost you both forever." As the sincerity of her words registered, I saw the cracks in her facade, the uncertainty that mirrored my own guilt and regret. Rare moments of human vulnerability brought forth an unexpected tenderness. But before I could gather my thoughts, she continued, glancing past me. "That I didn't come alone," she said, her eyes flickering with anxiety, catching something behind me. A wave of dread washed over me as I turned slowly, my pulse quickening as I realized who she was speaking about. That a figure stepped into the doorway, someone I recognized immediately, and yet my heart battled with disbelief. It was Gabriel, my brother, the sibling with whom I had shared laughter and tears before a fateful rift formed between our families. He had grown hardened by life, but now, here he was, stepping into a battlefield of emotions. "Hey, Joseph," he greeted me, his voice gravelly, reminiscent of nights spent shouting in disagreement over our shattered family ties. "I heard about Mom and thought, well, I wanted to see you." The air crackled with tension, a silent acknowledgement between us of the years lost and the pain endured. Behind me, I felt Nadia's hand tighten around me. He had never known of this fractured relationship, and now he had to bear witness to an unraveling that could change everything. "What do you want?" I shot back, desperately clawing for control over this escalating situation that threatened to close in on us like a vice. Family reunions were never meant to collide with hospital rooms, and yet here we stood, the world narrowing down to nothing but unresolved pain. Gabriel's brow furrowed in response, and as he opened his mouth to speak, a loud beep from the machines monitoring my mother interrupted, sending a jolt of panic through us all. "Get the doctor," the nurse exclaimed, rushing into action as confusion erupted around us. My breath hitched in my throat as I felt the ground shift beneath my feet, a chaotic whirlpool spiraling out of control. "Mom, please, don't leave us," Nadia cried out, tears streaming down his cheeks. I stood frozen, engulfed by the tempest around me, an unraveling family, a mother on the brink, and long-buried grudges rising like ghosts from the grave. Would we be left standing at the precipice, forced to confront everything we'd lost? Or would old wounds crack open and consume us whole? As the chaos intensified and my heart raced, I would soon discover that the real conflict was only just beginning. The room was a whirlwind, people bustling about, their voices blending into a chaotic symphony of urgency. My mind raced as I fought to comprehend the turmoil surrounding my mother, the shadows of half-familiar faces stark against the bright hospital lights. The doctor would arrive any second, but all I could think about was Nadia, his small frame trembling beside me, and Gabriel, the brother I once knew, now a mere stranger. "Joseph." Gabriel's voice sliced through the noise, firm yet desperate. "Can we talk? Away from here. Now is not the time," I snapped, frustration spilling over. His presence was an unwelcome reminder of everything we lost, a wound I wasn't ready to reopen in front of Nadia. "Please," he urged, his eyes pleading. "It's important." The alarm from my mother's bed blared again, and in that moment, I caught a glimpse of the fear etched in Nadia's face, confusion mingled with the raw anxiety of a child confronted by the fragile reality of life and death. Scrambling for reassurance, I knelt beside him, brushing the hair from his forehead. "Hey, listen, your grandma's going to be okay. You just need to keep holding on, all right?" But while I fought to keep my composure, a knot of guilt twisted in my chest. Behind me, Gabriel stood as a testimony to my past, the brotherhood betrayed. The laughter turned to echoes of resentment. Would going away with him heal us, or only deepen the chasm that had long ago split our family? As if reading my mind, Gabriel cut through the noise. "We might lose her, Joseph. You and I," he lowered his voice. "We might not have another chance." The weight of his words pressed down on me, flooding my chest with a sense of urgency I hadn't expected. I glanced back at my mother, who lay in her bed, fighting for each breath, each heartbeat. In that moment of vulnerability, I realized our quiet resentment could wait. Our shared history, as fractured as it was, needed to be addressed under the looming specter of loss. "Fine. Just for a minute," I relented, and Nadia's eyes flicked between us, confused but malleable, as if he bore the weight of both our decisions. Gabriel led me to a quieter corner of the waiting room, where the harsh hospital lights faded into a softer glow. My chest tightened. "What do you want to say?" I demanded, battling against the swell of memories I dared not confront. Mom called me. Gabriel confessed, his hands lodged deep in his pockets, gesturing absent-mindedly at the floor. She told me everything about her illness, about you and Nadia, and that she needed all of us. She said she might not have long. Reality crashed down, my breath faltering as I fought back a swell of emotion. Did she really want us all there? Or was this yet another manifestation of her running away from the truth? Why should I trust anything she says? She left us, Gabriel. She made her choice. I shot back, the betrayal still fresh. Even after all these years, Gabriel met my anger with an understated calm. I felt the same way, but I also felt her pain, the regret. He replied, his gaze unwavering. We all lost out when we turned our backs on each other. Maybe this is a chance to heal. Before I could respond, the hallway opened up to a rush of activity as a team of doctors stormed past us, urgency in their movements palpable. A sense of dread filled the air like a foul mist, and I felt a sinking feeling in my gut. Something's happening, I said, forcing myself to move back toward the room, Gabriel following closely. Just as we reached the doorway, a nurse stepped out, her face pale with concern. Family of Francis Turner? She called out, her voice strained as all eyes turned toward her. My heart slammed against my ribcage. The implication was terrifying. That I am her son, I shouted, pushing through the small crowd gathering around us. What's happening? She's stable for now, but we need to discuss options for her care, the nurse replied. But her expression told me it was serious, that we were standing at a precipice where hope shimmered faintly in the distance. The moment echoed in my mind, a suspended breath held between fear and potential loss. I locked eyes with Gabriel. What had we become? The two of us against an uncertain future intertwined with the shadows of our shared past. In a sudden act of unexpected vulnerability, Gabriel reached for my shoulder, squeezing gently. We're still brothers, right? His plea was sincere, weighted with possibility. Let's do this together. Before I could find an answer, Nadia appeared, his small hand gripping mine tightly. Dad, I'm scared, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I knelt down, meeting his distressed gaze. I know, buddy, but we'll face whatever comes, together. My heart ached, knowing that we weren't just confronting my mother's fate. We were on the brink of redefining our own family ties, just as they had begun to break down all around us. But as I turned to face the nurse again, a chill swept through the room. Joseph, she said, her voice catching slightly, I need you to know something. It seems there were some documents concerning your mother's health that we uncovered. She may have made a decision last month that you need to be aware of. My stomach twisted, an icy realization dawning upon me. What could possibly complicate this already dire situation? What had she decided? As I stood on the verge of understanding something that could irrevocably change everything, I found myself grasping at the threads of my emotions like a lifeline, wishing I could pull them in before another storm broke. The waiting room felt like a pressure cooker, filled with fleeting moments of panic, uncertainty, and an overhanging dread that snaked into the corners of my mind. I could feel Nadia's small hand becoming clammy in mine, echoing his own fear as I faced the nurse, whose expression was tight with something unspoken. As she prepared to relay the news, I caught sight of Gabriel's troubled face, seeing the weight of family legacy and our shared pain etched clearly in his furrowed brow. What decision? I demanded, my heart racing as a chill swept through the air, suffocating. Any breath of hope felt 1,000 miles away. No matter which way I turned, new obstacles loomed, like specters from the past refusing to let me escape. Your mother may have signed a DNR, the nurse said softly, her eyes avoiding mine, as if she already knew how those letters would land on my heart. Do not resuscitate. I recommend you review those documents before making any decisions. The world warped around me, blurring the lines of my reality into a spinning whirlpool of confusion and betrayal. How could she? Had she lost hope in us, in the fight for life? As the words poured into my consciousness, the overwhelming nature of it all struck like a heavy fist. No, I rasped, shaking my head vehemently. No, she would not after everything. I hadn't even realized tears were slipping down my cheeks until I felt Nadia's grip tighten even more, his little fingers nearly cutting off my circulation. Gabriel stepped forward. Where can we find this paperwork? We need to see it now, he urged, his tone shifting from that of a lost brother to one filled with resolve, as if those letters could somehow rewrite everything we stood to lose. "Follow me," the nurse instructed, and with a sinking soul, I fell into step behind her, the gravity of the situation dragging at my heels. The sterile hallways stretched out, echoing with silent cries. Each footfall seemed to resonate with the wishes ID barely accepted another chance to heal what had long been shattered, and now potential decisions threatening to sever any remaining ties. We were led to a small room overlooking the bustling ER, a sanctuary for tough conversations, but, in this moment, it felt more like an interrogation room brimming with uncertainty. She pulled out a neatly organized file, handing it to me as my mind drowned in regret. "They'll give you some time," the nurse said quietly, leaving us alone in the harsh fluorescent glare. It felt like a fortress, echoing with too many memories, the sound of laughter long faded, the long nights filled with arguments that never seemed to resolve anything. "What do you think she was thinking?" Gabriel's voice was low, filled with a mix of incredulity and grief, woven together. "How could she choose this?" I ripped the folder open, desperate to understand. Inside, pages filled with medical jargon spilled out succinct notes from various doctors, memos regarding her declining health. But it was the single sheet, typed in her unmistakable cursive, that caught my breath. It was a letter to me, to us, that I don't want to be a burden, it began, and each word sliced through my heart like a blade dipped in salt. "I've made choices that led to pain, and I can't bear to see you both suffer. She thinks she's protecting us," I breathed, my voice faltering under the weight of realization. Somewhere beneath the layers of anger and loss, I understood she wasn't running away, but distancing herself to shield us from further hurt. Gabriel's eyes flickered with something unrecognizably, a mixture of anger and sorrow. "But she's wrong. This isn't right. We're her family. We deserve a chance to fight for her." His frustration poured over, cascading like a stream spilling over the edges of its bank. Turbulent and uncontainable, with shaking hands, I pressed the page flat against my chest, absorbing its message like a lifeline offered in the storm. "We can't let her make this decision, not without us." Not like this. That a silence fell like a thick shroud, a rift between what was known and what lay ahead. Bursts of memories of our childhood flashed in. My mind, filled with love and laughter, paralleling my own tumultuous feelings of distrust and abandonment. Could healing truly be possible, or were we too far gone? Just then, Nadia's soft voice broke through the heavy air. "Dad, I don't want Grandma to go," he said, his small frame trembling under the weight of loss. The innocence in his eyes twisted something raw in my heart, and I noticed an unyielding spark of determination igniting inside me. "I don't either, buddy," I replied, kneeling before him again. "We'll fight for her. We'll show her she's not alone." My chest tightened with the urgency of that vow, my heart pounding in sync with his fervent need for hope. I rose again. I could feel Gabriel's presence beside me, solid and steady. Together, he reiterated, and the shared understanding sparked what felt like a fragile alliance, built on the possibility of redemption. But before we could collect ourselves and hatch a plan, another wave of reality crashed over us as the nurse returned. Her eyes were wide, color drained from her face. "We need everyone back in the room immediately," she said urgently, the unshakable fear in her voice sending icy fingers down my spine. That I exchanged a look with Gabriel, dread pooling like a stone in my gut. Nadia clung to my side, confused yet sensing something grave was about to unfold. Neither of us could prepare for the storm that awaited us or the truth that could change everything. As we rushed back, I realized the moment we were stepping back into my mother's fate, heart and history intertwined, the chance of a final heartbreaking decision hanging like a guillotine above us. I steeled myself for whatever revelation awaited, but the shadows whispered of choices still unmade, as I braced for a truth that could unravel the very fabric of our family ties. The familiar sterile scent of antiseptic and the echoing footsteps on the linoleum floor were eerily comforting as I hurried alongside Gabriel and Nadia. The nurse led the way, her expression grave, eyes darting with a mix of urgency and compassion that somehow only deepened our unease. Each step towards my mother's room felt like traversing a tightrope over an abyss, uncertainty gnawing at the edges of my mind like a relentless tide. When we entered the room, the sight that met us was jarring. My mother lay motionless, connected to a myriad of tubes and machines that beeped rhythmically, the cold hum of the room filled with clinical detachment. But there was something different about the atmosphere, something monumental was lurking beneath the surface, heavy and dense. "Mom." The words slipped from my lips, tentative, as if fear itself might shatter the thin veneer of hope I was clinging to. I approached her bedside slowly, my heart pounding like a drum echoing through the silence, begging for a flicker of recognition from her closed eyes. The nurse positioned herself closely, her eyes silently urging me to prepare for a reality that could crush our dreams. "The doctors have found something the tests didn't reveal before," she announced, her voice trembling ever so slightly. "We need to discuss options, and your mother needs to be a part of this conversation." Gabriel stood beside me, his face the very definition of bewilderment mixed with determination. He leaned forward, eyes fiercely locked onto the nurse, as though his intensity could affect some change within the sterile walls of that room. "What do you mean options?" he pressed. "Isn't there a chance?" She's been unresponsive. "The doctors are recommending we consider palliative care, and they may have to." Her voice tapered off into a silence laden with the weight of what was unsaid. Nadia shivered slightly, tugging on my sleeve, his innocent eyes wide with confusion but sparkling with a thread of courage. "What does that mean?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper, the tremor in it making my heart ache. I knelt beside him, wrapping an arm around his shoulder. "It means that they want to make sure Grandma is comfortable. It's about helping her feel at peace, sweetheart." I swallowed against the lump forming in my throat, my heart aching for my son's innocence, for the world he was about to traverse into a world where loss was real, where grief would carve its mark. "But I want her to wake up," Nadia insisted, the pressure of desperation wrapping tightly around each word. "She promised she would bake us cookies again." Gabriel placed a reassuring hand on his back. "And maybe she will, buddy. We just have to trust that she knows we love her." The sincerity in his voice struck. Mayhay was wrestling with his own emotions, yet here he was, providing the strength needed when I felt like I was unraveling. I turned to look at my mother, this brave woman who had fought through so much already, and a surge of images swam through my mind. The joy in her laughter, her hands kneading dough, and the warmth of her embrace. The thought of losing her had shifted the axis of my world in ways I didn't know had been possible. "Listen," I said, gathering my resolve. "If she's going to be part of this decision, we need to let her know she's not fighting alone." Nadia nodded, the ferocity of a child's faith igniting his small frame with energy. "Yeah, we're here, Grandma. We love you." His unwavering belief sparked a flicker of hope within me, banishing the darkness that threatened to settle over us. Just then the door swung open, and a new figure entered, a doctor in a white coat, his expression stoic, betraying none of the tumult that raged behind those professional eyes. "I'm Dr. Peters," he introduced himself, projecting an air of authority yet tinged with a subtle warmth that made my heart squeeze even tighter with hope. "I'm here to discuss your mother's situation. I believe it's time we opened a dialogue about future possibilities and care options." As he began to speak, my breath caught at the corner of his words, the unexpected possibility of clinical trials or new treatments that had recently emerged. My mind raced at the thought of another chance, nudged into existence by an innocent plea and a glimmer of medical advancement. It was then a thought struck me, cold and invasive like ice water splashing on my skin. If we advocate for her, demand she persist, would she battle fueled by our love, or would she view it as us forcing her to endure a legacy of struggle she weary of? My pulse pounded against my temples, and the whispers of doubt began to creep back in. What if she truly felt as she wrote? That we deserved peace, that we deserved closure? What if the best decision was to let her go? From behind, I heard Gabriel speak, though my mind remained clouded in confusion. "We want her to be a part of this decision. She deserves to know all her options." The doctor looked at me, his eyes conveying a silent understanding, as if he had seen countless families wrestle with such decisions. "I will ensure she is aware of what we can do, but it's imperative we respect her wishes as well." In the midst of this whirlwind, my world seemed to shrink to the space of my heart, caught between two fierce desires, to save my mother and to honor her wishes. I closed my eyes for a moment, yearning for clarity, but as I opened them again, Nadia's small fingers tugged at my sleeve, pulling my attention back to him. Dad, I don't want Grandma to go. I want to ask her to stay and be happy. His words erupted with the purity of a child's love, raw and unfiltered. I pulled him close, placing my hand on his head, but conflicting emotions surged within me, battling like stormy seas. We'll do everything we can, buddy. We'll fight for her, even if it means talking about hard things. But as I spoke, doubt washed over me, an unshakable fear that my devotion would become a chain instead of the lifeline I envisioned. Would I lead us closer to a semblance of hope or pull her deeper into despair? Before I could contemplate further, the weight of the moment swelled as the doctor continued. It may be prudent to gather her wishes clearly and see what she wants. That I nodded slowly, realizing we were standing at the precipice. The decision seemed insurmountable, a mountain made of grief and love, mingling with unresolved history. And as I stood there, I realized the true challenge was not merely in her wishes, but in the collective will to face our own fears and ultimately accept whatever fate awaited. But as I turned my attention back to my mother's prone figure, I caught a glimpse of her eyelids fluttering slightly, as if stirred by a dream. Attention locked, my heart leapt in anticipation, whispering a prayer that we were not too late. I gripped Nadia's hand gently, my own trembling with the weight of waiting, our futures hanging in suspense as we stood united by love, longing, and the veil of uncertainty ahead. The soft hum of machines intertwined with the air of uncertainty that clung heavily to the hospital room. I could almost feel the pulse of hope fluttering like a fragile bird trapped within the confines of my chest. Nadia stood beside me, eyes wide and brimming with the innocence of youth, while Gabriel leaned closer to my mother, his quiet strength radiating reassurance even in the darkest of moments. Mom? I whispered again, this time allowing my voice to shake, my heart aching with a longing that felt like claws digging into my soul. I searched her face for any sign of acknowledgement, every breath a silent plea for her to awaken, to affirm that the love we had for each other could bridge the chasm of uncertainty that lay before us. Dr. Peters cleared his throat, breaking through the haze of my swirling emotions. As I mentioned, we can explore certain clinical trials, but it's crucial we understand your mother's perspective. It may help to talk to her directly if she's showing any signs of responsiveness. A sound of breath caught in my throat as I leaned closer, my heart racing. The fluttering of her eyelids seemed deliberate now, a sign awakening our hopes. Mom, if you can hear me, please, stay with us. I gripped her hand, the skin cool and fragile beneath my fingers, desperate for some connection. It felt like the world had paused, awaiting her next move, the weight of expectancy suffocating yet exhilarating. Minutes turned into an eternity as we all stood in limbo, poised on the edge of despair and flickering possibilities. Time warped, bending under the pressure of the moment. Just when I thought my fevered hope had lost its grasp, my mother's voice emerged, a faint whisper, the sound slithering through the desolation. Danny? Mom, we're here. I could feel my heart ready to leap from my chest, a bittersweet blend of joy and sorrow washing over me. Nadia's small hand squeezed mine, as if confirming that our unity would forge the way ahead. We love you, and we want to talk about what's next, okay? Her brow furrowed slightly, a flicker of confusion crossing her features. What's happening? The words tumbled out, weak yet insistent, fighting against her weariness. Dr. Peters took a measured step forward. You've shown some signs of responding, and we're discussing options to ensure you're comfortable. But together, we'd like to understand your wishes. That moment, my breath hitched. My pulse quickened in trepidation at the crossroads before her. This was the moment of truth entwined in raw emotion, and I felt the impending weight of her choice looming over all of us. My mother's gaze flickered between us, searching, absorbing the enormity of this conversation. I want to bake cookies again. I promised. Nadia. The gentleness of her words brushed against my heart like a soothing balm, but beneath them lay the tremor of a deeper fear, the fear of leaving, of saying goodbye. Nadia's eyes glistened with unshed tears, and I felt a surge of anguish for the burden he carried, the innocence forced to reckon with the uncertainties of love and loss. But Grandma, you can't go. His youthful conviction erupted, unwavering against the stark reality settling around us. You have to fight. I need you. My mother's gaze softened, an unyielding fire ignited, fueled by love, but encumbered by the weight of fatigue and the gravitas of her situation. Nadia, she struggled to form the next words, her breath shaky and laborious. I'm tired, baby. I just don't know if I can. That I watched as the realization crept into my son's eyes, the understanding that love doesn't shield us from the inevitability of loss. But what if we fight together? Just like you taught me, Grandma. We can be strong. The rawness of his voice tore at the walls I had built around my heart. In that moment, Gabriel stepped in, kneeling down beside him, like the steadfast anchor he always was. Your grandma is so brave, just like you, he said, his voice a soothing cadence that broke through the tension. But right now, she needs us to support her, and that means understanding what she wants. All of it, even the hard parts. The room fell silent, tension thickening in the air, as if we were all holding our breaths waiting for the weight of her next words. My mind raced. Did we dare push for more when she clearly felt the pull of fatigue? Were we simply amplifying her struggle? But in that silence, that charged stillness, I saw her resolve glimmer, dim but not extinguished. Then tell me, what can we do? She asked, eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that sent a rush of sorrowful strength through me. Dr. Peters cleared his throat, ready to expound on possibilities, but I held my hand up, a broken plea echoing in my heart. Mom, whatever you decide, we'll support you. No matter how hard it gets. The noise around me began to fade, and in that infinite space, I glimpsed the intricate web of our love, tangled yet resilient. But as soon as that flicker of hope ignited, it was shrouded by fresh doubts. What if continuing to fight meant prolonging her pain? What if it shattered our family's delicate threads? But before I could voice that fear, a chill rushed through the room, and my phone buzzed violently on the table beside me, a dark portent shattering the thin layer of hope we were clinging to. I glanced down and froze. The color drained from my face. A message from my sister. I just got a call about Dad. He was in an accident. It's serious. You need to come home. The floor beneath me felt as if it had split apart, the unyielding weight of this new revelation crashing over us, drowning in the tidal wave of grief that flooded my senses. And just as I thought the foundation of my world could withstand nothing more, my heart sank deeper into despair now. We were on the cusp of yet another heartbreaking decision. Would I choose my mother or rush home to protect the other half of my heart? The decision felt impossible, and just like that, we stood on the precipice of anguish, forever suspended between love and the looming specter of loss. In that unbearable moment, the world around me morphed into a surreal blur, reality tangling with the countless threads of my past. I stood at the crossroads of love and duty, unwillingly facing a decision I never wished to make. My mother's labored breaths filled the void between us, each inhale a reminder of her fragility. I glanced at Nadia, his small form quivering beside me, his innocence threatened by the storm of truth engulfing our lives. Dad, Nadia's voice trembled, breaking through the fog. What are we going to do? The sincerity in his eyes clawed at my heart, infusing me with painful clarity. I swallowed hard, my throat dry as if grappling with an immense weight. We wait, buddy, I said, my voice an anchor amidst chaos. We wait for Grandma to guide us. Yet even as the words left my lips, doubt clawed at my insides, resonating with the heaviness of the message from my sister. As I struggled internally, the room seemed to pulse around me. The scent of antiseptic faded, replaced by distant memories of laughter shared around family dinners, echoes of affection that no longer felt like they belonged to me. Would I sacrifice one chance at love for another? The choice burrowed deep, festering like an untreated wound, one I wasn't ready to address. Mom? I whispered, drawing closer. Can you hear me? Please, fight. We need you. Her eyelids fluttered once more, a faint pulse of energy coursing through her. With trepidation, I let the words tumble out. I just received some terrible news about Dad. I don't know what to do. The moment hung delicately over us as she opened her eyes fully for the first time, a flicker of recognition, an ember of love. Joseph, her voice wavered, barely above a whisper, but it shimmered with the remnants of her spirit. You can't stop living for me. In that instant, I felt the overwhelming flood of her love wrap around me, binding us amidst the unsettling chaos. I don't care about myself right now, Mom. It's you I'm worried about. Please don't leave us. Tears filled her eyes, the memories of shared love swirling through all of us. I fought so hard for you too, she began, labored breaths punctuating her resolve. But sometimes we fight too hard for our own empowerment, forgetting it's okay to lean on each other. You have to decide what your heart truly wants. The sincerity behind her words pierced through my heart like a beacon illuminating a path shrouded in darkness. Perhaps it was time to embrace vulnerability, to trust my family as I had when I was younger, when love felt less complicated. A wave of sorrow surged through me, morphing into a bittersweet realization. I looked at Nadia, who was holding onto my hand with a fierce grip, and found resolution. You're right, Mom. We can't let guilt and expectations drown us. I want you to choose what is best for you. Her eyes brightened for a fleeting moment, a smile breaking through the fatigue etched across her features. That's my boy. Just then, the very air around us seemed to shift, vibrating with a newfound energy. In that moment of surrender, it felt like something deep within churned in understanding weaving through the fabric of our family, even under the weight of unclear decisions. But we had to move forward, not solely driven by fear, but by love tempered with honesty. It was then that I realized a bond was forming not just between my mother and me, but between all of us, even amid the unresolved pain of the past. I could see it in Gabriel's earnest gaze, and I could feel it in Nadia's steadfast grip. We've faced nothing but chaos, and yet here we are, I stated, glancing at Gabriel. Maybe it won't hurt to approach this family knot together. To heal, we can reshape this connection. Gabriel nodded with a hint of surprise, as if the idea had taken root in his heart. You're right. It's been too long. Bro, taking a deep breath, I turned back to my mother, who was watching us, a knowing smile breaking through her fatigue. We can choose to find peace no matter which road we take, I said firmly. I want you to know you don't have to see this through alone. We're all right. Here. As those words settled in the air, a profound silence enveloped us, a shaky confidence born of vulnerability. A wavering hope began to bloom amongst our fragility, illuminated by the strength drawn from shared scars of the past. With fragile voices, we spoke of the future, the possibilities and choices lingering on the horizon. Each fragile piece of our story began to intertwine amidst newfound compassion, binding us together like a mosaic of heartache and hope. But just then, another soft voice cut through the emotions. Dad, what about Grandma? It was Nadia, pulling my attention back to the present moment. My heart skipped. In that heartbeat, I realized how much strength he had in wanting to keep our family whole. We'll figure it out together, I promised him, placing my hand atop his. No one makes these choices alone. Nadia blinked, a hesitant smile breaking through the layers of worry across his small face. Promise? Promise. With the urgency of uncertainty erupting through the air, I steeled myself to face each challenge together, because sometimes the act of loving was the bravest thing we could do. And as we stood united, 3 generations rearing to embrace love amid darkness, I felt an echo reverberate through my heart, uncertain yet resolute. We are never alone. With my family surrounding me, the complex web of hospital lights cascading over us felt lighter, filling the once convoluted air with hope. In that moment of clarity, an unexpected burst of warmth surged through the room, wrapping us in a comforting embrace. I realized we weren't simply fighting against the impending tide of loss. We were being united in our resolve to cherish life. Mom, whatever happens next, we will stand by your side and learn to hear each other, I vowed, my heart pounding steadily in my chest. Family is more than blood, it's in our thoughts, our hopes. And as time seemed to stand still once more, my mother's weary smile shimmered through a world awash in shadows. Then I have everything I need. Me too, Nadia chimed in, his youthful exuberance making the space glow. Always, Gabriel's voice was soft yet firm, united with me in this tapestry of love we were weaving anew. A door ajar with unresolved pasts, choices still hidden beneath layers of pain, and questions of forgiveness would give way to strength. The beauty of family was resilient, capable of navigating the storm together. As the moments cascaded around us, each heartbeat a testimony of love against insurmountable odds, I understood that the true essence of our fight lay in forging connections. And with that, a kaleidoscope of possibilities opened before us as our unique paths intertwined, a richness reflecting the very fabric of our souls. Together, I breathed, letting the word hang in the charged air as we stood, side by side, ready to face whatever came next. Because no matter the destination, we had each other. And that was where our journey truly began. As a profound weight lifted from my heart, a single thought resonated with unwavering power. Family is forever the love that connects us, through every challenge, every heartache. In that moment, we chose hope. We chose to love,